Sometimes moments are appealing when perceived from a distance. But the fact of the matter is that disappointment always awaits humanity. Because the problem is that we become too comfortable with clinging around certain people because we assume that, okay, there are certain things that we will not be able to do right by virtue of not having them around. And it's like we instinctively forget that we have been surviving time and again in the absence, and their involvement was established in the progression of time. You were not born with this support structure that you've ascribed to your life. The honest truth is you do not need anyone to stand alive. Because one of the things that you need to understand is the fact that every man has his own race to run. And I've seen a combination of things happen from time to time, where we become too comfortable and clinging to what discomforts us due to the fear that losing those people will jeopardize our ability to operate at our fullest capacity. And one thing that we are contending against is that fear. It is not necessarily the fact that we will not be able to do it right in the absence. Because I tell you, people have done extremely miserable things to you, but you have no problem with sticking around. There's a constant need to forgive and forget. So sometimes we forgive and continue clinging, but there comes a time where you can forgive and at this point disacquaint yourself from the people that constantly do you wrong. What matters more is the fact that you're forgiven. Because true forgiveness is not necessarily predicated upon what you do after you have forgiven. It is not predicated upon clinging around the ones that have done you wrong once you're forgiven. When forgiveness is acted and served its course, once that is done, there's nothing more you can do to it. Whether you stick around or decide to walk away doesn't make any difference. And that's one thing you need to stick in the back of your head. Because all you have left of this entire situation is people taking advantage of your tolerance. Because when people constantly act against your peace, that becomes the initial scale of the measure of your tolerance, which becomes extremely vivid in their sight. And once they're extremely knowledgeable of that, they will not hesitate to act upon the same act that discomforts you, which ultimately becomes the ultimate injustice to your peace. Knowing that you will forgive without hesitation. And so you will continue doing the same thing, and you continue beat yourself up. You are fighting against reality. And this is what life is trying to tell you. There's a combination of things you can do right without. And I understand that sometimes we fall in so deep with an acquaintance due to the duration and its span, the span of its existence, and getting ourselves out becomes extremely difficult. But the ability to be at ease lies in taking the step out. So never think that you can never encounter a moment of this kind. Because what happened in actual fact is that you got too used with having them around. Because the basis, or rather the description of the moment is one that was extremely unpleasant. But what makes it difficult for you to break free from the moment is the fact that it has been operating for an extended span. And that's what creates the complication to actually disacquaint yourself from the moment, and thus allow to become a thought that you can never go back and live. So do not be afraid to lose people. And do not be afraid to step back from people who are discomfort to you, because I am telling you, the world is made up of a combination of people, and that's one thing that you need to understand. So being acquainted to people puts you in this box that encloses what's out there from you. And one thing that you need to understand is that this acquaintance is way smaller than what's out there. And so once you break free from this acquaintance, you realize that there's so much greatness that lies out there than in here. Life is way better out there than in here. But you can never grab hold of this realization of this factual truth unless you have taken the step out of the acquaintance and thus enabling yourself to discover the goodness that is not worthy to be compared to what you have encountered in this acquaintance. Do not utilize this acquaintance as a boundary that restricts you from encountering what lies out there. You owe it to yourself to exploit and discover new things. But when you become indebted to this experience that you are unable to break free from, when you therefore become captive to this moment that you're constantly trying to deviate from, you can never encounter what lies out there. And life becomes way easier when you live understanding that life is good with friends, life is good with partners, but way better without them. Because at the end of the day, every man has his own race to run. So sometimes we help other people find their own way to the top and become completely inconsiderate about the fact that we have our own way to find. And when they are there, they completely forget about you. They completely forget about the strength that propels them into becoming what they have become. And so you will live all your life in despair, because you assisted that individual with the hope that they will remember you when they had acquired their high standard. And so what I'm trying to say, do your own thing. Stop expecting people to be bothered. Stop expecting people to care. Stop expecting people to help. God will do that for you. So if it means you go to bed without food on your stomach, you do that. If it means you lose all the people that are making the provision, you see one thing that you need to understand is the fact that, for you to be able to stand independence, there is a necessity to be disacquainted from those that make the most provisions. And independence is a concept that we have to stand whether we like it or not, because we can never operate at our fullest capacity unless we have outdone the task of starting independence. And it all begins with disacquainting ourselves from the people that make provisions, the necessary provisions at times. And so there comes a time where we are forced to take decisions that jeopardize our relationships with our friends, our relationships with our partners, and it's all due to the fact that we are constantly trying to bring about the best in ourselves. I know people who are bound to relationships that have made them negligent of what matters more than any other thing for their individual lives. I know people who have become slaves to patterns that are extremely unbearable and absurd due to the fact that they have lost track of what is best for them. And so they serve what is of the interest of their partners, they serve the interests of their friends. For what reason, I have no idea, because these are the same people that will come back and stab you hard. And so no matter how convincing a moment can be, No matter how appealing an acquaintance can be with anyone, there is always possibility for disappointment, and that's one thing that you need to understand. So you always have to be on the safe side. Have something that will support you when disappointment hits you, despite the fact that the acquaintance was convincing in the beginning. There's always a possibility for disappointment. So in the progression of life, you create for yourself an escape path that will enable you to continue living at your fullest capacity despite the absence. Do not be too comfortable. And as I'm saying, no matter how convincing a moment can be, no matter how convincing a relationship can be, there's always possibility for disappointment. And that's what we need to be prepared for. So we operate in the convincing moment, understanding the fact that there's a possibility for disappointment. So we prepare ourselves for it as we encounter and endure this moment. It's a smart move that humanity needs to you cannot become dependent. What is the help of man? Because these are the same people that come back at us and they spite us, they laugh at us, they bring about all kinds of remarks about us. It just doesn't make sense. Why trust people? It's an honest fact, you've seen it. Women live in abusive relationships for as long as I can remember, and they say nothing about it. Why? Because we've fallen so deep. And so when the depth of our fall is enormous, and it's bringing about an immense measure of pain, we're unable to break free because we assume we will never encounter a moment of this kind, and we predicate that assumption as per the duration of this relationship, the duration of this acquaintance, and that is never the case. There is something way greater that lies out there that just demands a step out of the center circle that you become comfortable. So I thank you.